The passengers in Terminal C froze when the police dog suddenly lunged toward the pregnant woman. No alarms had gone off. No threats had been detected. But the dog barked with a desperation that chilled everyone around him, so desperate that even his handler couldn't control him. And when the officer finally discovered why, everyone wondered how a dog had sensed the danger long before any human could. The late morning rush had flooded the airport with hurried footsteps, rolling suitcases, and the disjointed blur of departures and reunions. Officer Ryan Hale had worked these halls for years, but today something felt different. His partner, K9 Shadow, was restless. Shadow was never restless. The German Shepherd was known across the department for his discipline, intelligence, and uncanny instincts. And yet, from the moment they stepped into the terminal, Shadow's ears twitched at every unfamiliar sound, his tail stiff, his gaze fixed not on any luggage or suspicious passenger, but on the entire crowd as if searching for someone he hadn't met yet. Ryan kept a tight grip on the leash. Easy, boy. Focus. Normal patrol. But Shadow wasn't interested in normal. They moved through the terminal, scanning for the usual signs of trouble, abandoned bags, nervous movements, anything out of place. That's when Ryan noticed her. A young woman, maybe in her late 20s, wearing a soft gray maternity dress beneath a faded denim jacket. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, but her pale lips and stiff posture revealed exhaustion. She carried 2 paper shopping bags, both trembling slightly in her hands. She looked lost, not physically but emotionally, as if the world was moving too fast and she had been left behind somewhere unseen. Shadow noticed her too. He stopped abruptly. Then he growled, low, uneasy. Ryan's brows furrowed. Shadow? What is it? She's just. Before he could finish, Shadow lunged. The leash tore forward. Ryan planted his feet, pulling back with every ounce of strength he had, but the dog refused to stop. Travelers gasped, parting like water around a rock in a river. Shadow's bark echoed through the terminal, sharp, urgent, desperate. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't alert mode. It was something else entirely, something Ryan had never heard in his partner's voice. The pregnant woman froze in fear, gripping the bags tighter, her breathing shallow. She tried stepping back, but her legs wobbled dangerously. Ryan raised a hand toward her. Ma'am, don't move. Stay right where you are. He's not trying to hurt you. But she didn't look convinced. Shadow barked again, louder, more frantic. His paws scraped the floor, nails clicking in a frantic rhythm. He wasn't barking at her. He was barking for her. Passengers raised their phones. Security officers rushed over. And in the middle of the chaos, the woman whispered, barely audible over the noise, please, please don't let him bite me. I'm not doing anything wrong. Ryan struggled to maintain control, heart racing. Shadow never reacts like this without a reason. What's in your bags? Are you carrying anything dangerous? Any food, chemicals, medicine? She shook her head. Just baby clothes, and water. Shadow barked even harder. Not at the bags. At her, Ryan felt something cold settle in his chest. He stepped closer slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. Ma'am, are you feeling all right? You look very pale. She swallowed. I'm fine. I just need to catch my flight. Shadow howled. A raw, piercing sound of panic. Passengers backed away. Ryan's instincts screamed. Something was wrong. The woman pressed a hand to her belly, wincing as her knees buckled. Ryan lunged forward, grabbing her arm before she fell. The bags slipped from her hands and hit the floor. A water bottle rolled across the polished tiles. She whispered, I'm okay. I'm just tired. Her face turned ghostly white. Sweat gathered along her hairline. Her breathing became thin, uneven. Shadow whined and nudged her stomach with the tip of his nose, gently, urgently. The woman flinched. It looked like pain. Ryan looked at the dog in disbelief. Shadow, what are you trying to tell me? But Shadow barked again and again, staring directly at the woman's abdomen. And suddenly, Ryan understood. He had seen the dog react like this only once before, years ago, when Shadow alerted him to a man who collapsed moments later from internal bleeding. Ryan's blood went cold. He knelt in front of the woman. "Ma'am, listen to me. You need to sit down immediately." She shook her head stubbornly. "No. I can't. I can't miss this flight. I have to go. I have to leave." Shadow whined and nuzzled her again, more frantically. Ryan raised his voice. "You're not okay. My dog is trained to detect medical distress. He thinks you are in danger." Her lips trembled. "I've had pain since last night, but I thought it was from walking too much. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I just want to get home." Shadow let out another desperate howl. Passengers gathered in silence, watching an invisible race between time and fate. Ryan didn't hesitate anymore. He called out to the nearest staff member. "Medical emergency. Call paramedics. Now." The woman gasped, clutching her belly with both hands. Her knees gave out, and Ryan caught her just before she hit the floor. Shadow circled them in frantic, protective loops. Her voice cracked. Is my baby okay?" Ryan held her tight. "We're going to help you. Stay with me. Do not close your eyes." But she was fading fast. Shadow pressed against her, nudging, whining, refusing to let her slip away. Ryan spoke urgently into his radio. "I need a medical team at Terminal C, Gate 17. Possible internal bleeding, pregnant female, late stage. Hurry." The woman's head rested against his shoulder. "I didn't want to bother anyone," she whispered. Ryan felt his chest tighten. "You're not a bother. You're a human being who needs help. And we are not going to lose you. Do you hear me?" Her breathing shuddered. People around her held their breath. Shadow barked once, short, sharp, commanding. As if begging her to stay alive. Ryan looked into the dog's eyes and whispered, "Good boy. I hear you. We won't let her die." Paramedics arrived in a rush, lifting the woman onto a stretcher. Shadow followed until Ryan held him back gently. The dog whined miserably as she was wheeled away. Ryan felt something hollow inside him. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But he knew one thing, she hadn't told him how bad the pain really was. Shadow dropped to the floor, staring after her, unmoving. Ryan knelt beside his partner. "You did everything you could, boy. Everything." But Shadow didn't move. He sensed the truth. He sensed that time was already slipping through her fingers. The paramedics disappeared behind double doors. And the terminal fell silent as passengers watched the aftermath of a moment almost no one understood. Except a dog. And the officer who trusted him. For a moment, Officer Mark stood frozen, staring at the unconscious woman as paramedics rushed toward her, their footsteps echoing across the airport floor like the ticking of a clock racing against fate. Everything inside him trembled with a strange mixture of guilt, fear, and a rising dread that something far worse was happening than anyone had realized. Coda, still alert and restless, barked again, this time not with aggression, but with a sharp, urgent warning that forced Mark to kneel beside the pregnant woman as the medics opened her shopping bag and fell into stunned silence. Inside the bag, beneath neatly folded baby clothes, lay a small sealed pouch. Not drugs, not explosives, but a medical kit, an emergency diabetic kit, along with a blood glucose monitor that flashed dangerously low numbers. For a split second, the entire chaotic misunderstanding came into focus like the final pieces of a tragic puzzle snapping together. She wasn't a criminal, she wasn't hiding anything illegal, she wasn't dangerous. She had been in the middle of a severe hypoglycemic crash, and Coda, bless his loyal, unbelievable instincts, had sensed the medical danger long before any human could. Mark's throat tightened painfully as he whispered, "Oh God, she wasn't running. She was just trying to stay on her feet." The paramedics lifted her carefully onto the stretcher, checking her vitals, speaking in quick, urgent phrases about glucose levels and pregnancy instability. Mark followed, numb, shaken, barely hearing the airport announcements overhead or the murmuring crowd gathering behind the yellow line. All he could focus on was the faint, uneven rise and fall of the woman's chest and the way Coda walked beside the stretcher, head lowered, tail stiff, not proud, not triumphant, but deeply worried. It struck Mark harder than anything else. His dog had shown more compassion, more awareness, and more human instinct in seconds than he, a trained officer with years of experience, had managed to see. The guilt dug deeper into him as he watched her fingers twitch slightly, her eyelids fluttering as consciousness fought to return, and he vowed silently, even desperately, that he would not let her leave this airport without understanding the truth. Minutes later, she opened her eyes inside the medical room, confusion clouding her expression as she blinked at the bright lights. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "My baby, is my baby okay?" The lead medic reassured her softly, explaining that while her glucose had dropped dangerously low, they acted in time. Mark stood at the doorway, shoulders heavy with remorse, feeling like he didn't deserve to step inside. But when she finally noticed him, her eyes widened, not with fear, not with anger, but with the hollow exhaustion of someone carrying far too many burdens alone. He took a slow breath and approached her bedside, hat in hand, his voice soft but shaking under the weight of his conscience. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology. A real one. I thought you were in danger of harming others. I was wrong. Coda wasn't barking at you, he was trying to warn us that you were the one in danger." Her breath caught, a tear slipping down her cheek as she gently rested a hand on her stomach, as if shielding her unborn child from the memories of the panic she'd just endured. I haven't eaten since last night," she admitted weakly. "My flight was delayed twice. I felt dizzy, but I thought I would be fine. I didn't want to bother anyone." In that moment, Mark felt something inside him shatter, a painful realization of how many silent battles people carried while looking completely ordinary on the outside. He pulled a chair closer, speaking with a sincerity that carved itself into the air. "You're never bothering anyone when your life or your baby's life is at risk. You matter. Your safety matters. And what happened out there, that shouldn't have happened to you." Coda pressed his head gently against the bed's edge, and the woman reached out with shaking fingers to stroke the dog's fur, whispering, "You saved us, you knew." As the emotional silence settled, Mark explained the situation to his supervisor, and the misunderstanding was quickly documented and cleared. But something inside him refused to let the story end there. He discovered her name, Lena, and learned that she had been traveling alone, fleeing an abusive partner in another state and moving to her sister's home for safety before giving birth. She had been exhausted, dehydrated, scared, and determined not to let anyone know how fragile her condition had become. That knowledge hit Mark harder than any reprimand ever could. He realized that her life, her baby's life, had been dangling by a thread, one frayed, quiet thread of hope she had tried so hard to hold on to without asking for help. Hours later, as she rested with an 4 drip beside her, Mark stepped outside the room and looked straight into the camera, speaking not as an officer, not as an authority figure, but as a human being who had just come face to face with how quickly things could go wrong in someone's life without anyone noticing. His voice was filled with urgency, sincerity, and a plea born from reflection and remorse. Friends, before we continue, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe for more powerful real-life stories, and share your thoughts in the comments. You never know who might need to hear something that could save them. And now, let me tell you what happened when Lena woke up again. When Mark re-entered the room later, Lena was awake, gazing quietly at the ceiling as if replaying the terrifying moments in her mind. He sat beside her and spoke gently, sharing how Coda had refused to stop barking, how the dog's instincts had been the only thing that broke through the misunderstanding, how close they had come to losing her, and her baby, before anyone realized what was happening. Her lips trembled as she listened, tears gathering but not falling, held in place by the incredible strength of a woman who had survived far too much already. "Thank you," she whispered. "For being here, even after everything." Mark shook his head. "No. Thank the dog. And please, don't walk through things alone. Not anymore." Moments later, the doctor entered with the results. Lena's baby was safe, her condition stable for now, but she needed rest, proper nutrition, emotional support, and people she could trust. As they spoke, Mark made a decision he didn't overthink, didn't question, because it felt like the only right thing to do. "Let me personally escort you to your sister's home once you're discharged," he offered quietly. "No trouble. No paperwork. Just a human helping another human." Lena's eyes widened in gratitude, and for the first time since the entire ordeal began, she smiled, a small, tired, but deeply genuine smile that washed away the fear lingering in the room. A few hours passed, and Lena was released with strict instructions. Mark walked beside her through the terminal, Coda trotting proudly at her side. Passengers who had earlier whispered and stared now looked on with softened expressions, realizing that the woman they had judged was not a threat but someone fighting silently for herself and her unborn child. As they reached the exit, Lena suddenly paused, tears slipping freely now as she turned to Mark. "You could have treated me like a suspect. You could have dismissed me. But instead, you treated me like a human being when I needed it most." Mark swallowed hard, trying to steady his voice. No one should have to face their worst moments alone. Before stepping into the taxi, Lena knelt slightly, hand resting on her belly, and whispered to Coda, "You saved both of us. I'll never forget this." Coda nudged her gently, tail wagging with quiet pride. Mark opened the door for her, watched her settle inside, and felt something shift deep within him, a renewed understanding of the reason he wore the uniform, the reason Coda trained every day, the reason kindness still mattered in a world full of assumptions and silent battles. As the taxi pulled away, Mark stood with Coda at his side, both of them watching until it disappeared from sight. Then, turning toward the camera one last time, he shared the lesson this day had carved into his heart: always look twice. Always listen deeper. People carry storms you know nothing about. And sometimes, the person you think is suspicious is actually the one who needs saving the most.